In a quiet village nestled between hills, a tired and ragged traveler arrived. Dust covered his face, and his clothes were torn from the long journey. People watched him with suspicion, whispering and avoiding him. Hungry and thirsty, he knocked on doors, but no one offered help. The village had grown cold and cautious over time. As he sat under a tree, ready to sleep with an empty stomach, an old woman approached. She smiled gently and offered him a piece of bread and a cup of water. "You look like you've been through a lot," she said. Her kindness warmed the traveler's heart more than the food itself. Watching from a distance, a young boy named Arif was touched by the old woman's gesture. The next day, Arif brought the traveler a blanket and offered to help him find shelter in the barn. Inspired by Arif's actions, other villagers slowly began to help too, offering fruits, clothes, and kind words. Soon, the entire village felt the change. People began greeting each other more kindly, helping neighbors in need, and smiling more. The stranger no longer looked like a burden, but a blessing in disguise. After a few days, the traveler stood at the edge of the village, ready to leave. "You gave me more than food," he said, tears in his eyes. "You gave me hope." The villagers waved him off, their hearts full. The village was never the same again. One small act of kindness had unlocked love, unity, and compassion. And so, the story spread, that kindness, no matter how small, has the power to change the world. The sun began to set behind the hills, casting a golden hue over the quiet village. The traveler sat alone under a tree, his face weary, his hands trembling from hunger and fatigue. One by one, villagers passed him by, some glanced with curiosity, others with suspicion, but none stopped. His presence, unfamiliar and dusty, made people uneasy. Just as he closed his eyes in despair, a soft voice called out, "Son, are you hungry?" He looked up to see an old woman standing before him. Her back was slightly bent, and her clothes were simple and worn, but her eyes held a warmth he hadn't seen in days. I haven't eaten since yesterday," he replied, ashamed. Without another word, she reached into her basket and pulled out a piece of homemade bread, still warm from the oven, and a small clay pot of water. She handed them to him with trembling hands. "This is all I have today," she said gently, "but you need it more than I do." The traveler hesitated, tears welling up in his eyes. "Why would you help me? You don't even know me." She smiled kindly. "Kindness doesn't ask for a reason, child. I once walked your path too." As he ate slowly, savoring each bite, he felt something deeper than satisfaction. It was the comfort of being seen, of being treated like a human being again. The old woman sat beside him silently, letting the moment speak for itself. In that simple gesture, bread, water, and silent presence, she planted a seed of hope. One act of compassion in a world that had turned away. And from that moment, the traveler knew, kindness still lived in the hearts of a few, and sometimes, that was enough to change everything. From the doorway of a small shop across the street, a young boy named Arif had watched everything, the traveler sitting alone, the people ignoring him, and finally, the old woman kneeling beside him, offering bread and water with a gentle smile. Arif couldn't stop thinking about it. Later that evening, he tugged at his mother's sleeve. "Mama, that man under the fig tree, he looked so tired." The old Amma gave him food. "Can I do something too?" His mother hesitated. "He's a stranger, Arif." But Amma helped him, the boy insisted. "If she's not afraid, why should we be?" Moved by her son's compassion, she nodded and helped him pack a small basket with a boiled egg, a banana, and an old woolen scarf. The next morning, Arif walked carefully to the fig tree. The traveler was still there, sitting quietly. Arif hesitated, then stepped forward. "Sir," he said shyly, "this is for you." The traveler looked up in surprise as Arif held out the basket with both hands. His smile was wide and genuine, his eyes bright with innocence. "I saw the kind lady help you yesterday. I wanted to help too." The traveler's voice trembled. Thank you, little one. Word of Arif's kindness spread quickly. People began to talk, not about fear, but about generosity. One by one, villagers who had turned away started bringing small gifts, a piece of fruit, a cup of tea, a smile. Something was changing. Kindness, like a seed, had been planted by the old woman, but it was the courage of a child that made it grow. And for the first time in a long while, the village began to feel warm again. In the days that followed, something unexpected began to stir in the village. Where once there had been silence and suspicion, now there was conversation, curiosity, and warmth. It began with small gestures, someone placing a jar of honey beside the traveler while he slept, another offering him a place to bathe behind their house. No one spoke much about it, but everyone noticed. The old woman's kindness had inspired a boy, and that boy's courage had reminded others of their own forgotten compassion. The traveler, though still tired and worn, now smiled. His eyes no longer searched the ground, they met others with quiet gratitude. He helped the baker stack wood in return for a piece of bread. He assisted an old man in lifting a heavy sack. He shared stories with the children, who gathered around him like birds at dawn. And something beautiful happened, people began helping one another too. Neighbors who once walked past each other in silence now stopped to chat. A farmer shared extra vegetables with a widowed mother. The tailor repaired a child's torn shirt without asking for coin. The kindness shown to the stranger had awakened something buried deep in their hearts, empathy, trust, and community. The village square, once quiet and cold, now buzzed with life and laughter. It wasn't just about helping a traveler anymore, it was about rediscovering who they were as a people. Kindness had become contagious. And though no one spoke it aloud, many began to wonder, had this stranger come to their village by chance, or had he been sent to remind them of something they had long forgotten? Whatever the answer, one thing was clear, the village was changing. And it was changing for the better. A week had passed since the traveler first arrived in the village. What had begun as a quiet act of kindness had blossomed into a wave of compassion that touched every home, every heart. The traveler, now looking healthier and more at peace, stood at the edge of the village path one morning, a small bundle of belongings over his shoulder. Word spread quickly, he was preparing to leave. A crowd began to gather, the old woman with her gentle smile, young Arif holding his mother's hand, the baker, the tailor, and dozens more. You don't have to go, someone called out. I must, the traveler replied kindly. There are other roads to walk, and others who may need hope as I once did. He turned to the old woman and bowed. Your kindness saved me. You reminded me that love still exists in this world. She nodded, tears in her eyes. You gave it back to us, child. This village was sleeping. You woke us up. Arif ran up and hugged the traveler tightly. Will you ever come back? Perhaps, he smiled. But even if I don't, remember this, every kind act you give lives on, even after you're gone. With that, he turned and began walking down the road. The villagers stood silently, not with sorrow, but with respect. In the days that followed, the village continued to flourish. People greeted strangers with warmth, looked after one another, and shared what little they had without hesitation. The traveler had left, but the kindness remained, like a fire that had been lit in every heart. And so, the story of the quiet man and the kind old woman became a legend, told to every child, remembered by every soul. The village had changed. And a better world had begun.